In our line of work, we look at a lot of cold cases. And usually the problem is a lack of information.
Right.
You have a body, no weapon, no witnesses, and a timeline with more holes than Swiss cheese. You're trying to build a puzzle with, what, half the pieces missing?
You're grasping at straws, really, just looking for one single thread you can pull on.
But then you get a case like the one we're diving into today, the murder of Alistair Wilson.
Mm.
And it feels like the opposite problem.
Mm.
It feels like we have too many puzzle pieces, but they all belong to different puzzles.
That is the perfect way to describe it. It's just a collision of elements that shouldn't exist in the same story.
I mean, just think about the inventory of this crime for a second. You have a squeaky clean, respectable banker reading bedtime stories to his kids.
Total domestic normacy.
And you have a literal antique pistol from the 20s or 30s. You have a strange blue envelope with the name Paul on it.
Which is empty.
Which is empty, by the way.
Yeah.
And you have a motive that might hinge on a wooden deck at a pub. It's absurd.
And that's before we even get to the fact that the murder weapon was found by a guy cleaning drains a mile away, purely by chance.
Just complete luck.
Or the fact that the police and the victim's family are now, they're in a public war over how the investigation was handled.
Exactly. It's messy. It's baffling. And it's known as the doorstep murder.
Yeah.
We're going back to Nairn, Scotland, November 2004. And our mission today isn't just to recount the tragedy, because it is an absolute tragedy, but to try and organize this chaos. We need to try and figure out how a planning application could possibly escalate into an execution.
And why, more than 20 years later, despite having a weapon, a plausible motive, and a very specific suspect profile, nobody is in handcuffs.
So let's set the board. And I want to skip the whole sleepy seaside town cliche. We know Nairn is quiet. We know it's nice.
Right. That's a given.
What we need to understand is the specific anomaly of that Sunday evening, November 28th, 2004.
The anomaly starts inside the house. It's about 7:00 p.m. The Wilson house is this big Victorian villa on Crescent Road. A solid, safe-looking house. Inside, you have Alistair Wilson. He's 30. He's the business manager at the Bank of Scotland. By all accounts, he's a man of routine, a man of responsibility.
And he's with his sons. They're tiny, 2 and 4 years old.
Yeah, just babies, really. They've just had their bath. He's reading them a bedtime story. His wife, Veronica, she's downstairs, tidying up, I think sorting some laundry. It is the absolute archetype of safety.
The world outside is dark and cold, but inside it's warm, it's predictable.
Until the doorbell rings.
And this is where everything just fractures.
It really does. Veronica goes to answer it. Now, in a town like Nairn, 7 o'clock on a Sunday, who are you expecting? A neighbor.
A friend, maybe someone dropping something off.
Exactly. You don't expect a stranger.
So what does she see? And let's be specific here, because this description has been analyzed to death.
She sees a man on the step. He's described as stocky, not huge, but, solid. His height is estimated somewhere between 5'4" and 5'7".
Okay.
He's wearing a dark blouse and jacket. But the key detail, the one that always stands out, is the headwear. He's wearing a baseball cap.
Pulled down low.
Pulled down low over his eyes.
Which immediately feels off. It's November in the Scottish Highlands. It's nighttime. A baseball cap isn't for warmth. It's a visor. It's a shield.
100%. It's a rudimentary disguise. It obscures the brow and the eyes, which are, the most recognizable features of a human face.
But his behavior doesn't match the disguise.
No, and that's the first contradiction. He doesn't barge in. He doesn't pull out a weapon. There's no aggression.
He just asks for Alistair.
He asks for Alistair Wilson by his full name.
Okay, stop there. That is so important. This rules out a random burglary gone wrong.
Completely.
It rules out a case of mistaken address, at least in terms of the house. He knows who lives there.
Yeah.
This person, this killer, is there for Alistair Wilson.
It's targeted. And Veronica, she leaves the man on the doorstep, which, again, that speaks to the level of trust in that community, doesn't it?
She doesn't slam the door and lock it.
No, she leaves it ajar, or maybe closed but unlocked, and she goes upstairs. She interrupts the bedtime story.
She tells Alistair there's a man asking for him. Alistair's, confused? He's not expecting anyone?
Totally confused. But he hands the book to Veronica, or puts it down, and goes downstairs to see who it is.
And this is where we entered the bizarre encounter phase. I mean, this is the core of the mystery.
This is it. Alistair goes to the door. He speaks to the man. We don't know exactly what was said, but we know what happens next. Alistair comes back inside.
And he's holding something.
He comes back to Veronica, and he's holding a blue, or some reports say turquoise, envelope. It's small, about the size of a greeting card.
And it had a name on it.
Paul. Just Paul, handwritten.
And does Alistair say, oh, it's from Paul, my old friend? Is there any recognition?
None at all. He's completely bewildered. He shows it to Veronica. He's opened it, and it's empty.
It's empty.
There's nothing inside. No letter, no threat, no photograph, just an empty envelope.
I struggle with this part more than any other aspect of the case. It just makes no sense. If you are a hitman, even a bad one, why bring a prop? And if you bring a prop, why is it nonsense?
This is the rabbit hole everyone falls down.
Yeah.
I think we have to break it down. There are, what, 3 main theories about this envelope?
Okay.
The first is the verification theory.
He's checking he's got the right guy.
Exactly. It's dark. The killer is wearing a cap that limits his own vision. He asks for Alistair Wilson, but maybe he's never seen him before, so he hands him an envelope with a random name, Paul, just to see how he reacts.
So if Alistair had said, I'm not Paul, maybe the killer just apologizes and walks away.
It's possible. Or maybe he was looking for a specific reaction. But Alistair's reaction was just confusion. He took it, didn't recognize it, and went to ask his wife. If it was a test, it's not clear if Alistair passed or failed.
Okay, so that's one. What's the second theory?
The distraction theory. This is straight out of, like, social engineering 101. If I walk up to your door at night with my hands in my pockets, your guard is up.
Right, you're looking at my hands wondering if I have a weapon.
But if I'm holding an envelope,
You look at the envelope.
you look at the object, it gives me a reason to be there. I'm just a courier. I'm a neighbor returning a letter that was misdelivered. It totally lowers the threat level. It creates a social contract. I hand you this, you take it. It stops you from slamming the door in my face.
It buys him 10 seconds of access.
Precisely. It turns a potential confrontation into a simple transaction. It's clever in a very lo-fi way.
Okay, and the third theory?
This one is a bit more psychological. It's the psychological crutch theory.
A crutch for the killer.
For the killer, yeah. This assumes he wasn't some cold-blooded professional. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he was terrified. Maybe he needed a script to get himself up that guarding path and ring that bell. Holding the envelope gave him a reason to be there, even if it was just to convince himself.
I'm just delivering a letter. I'm just delivering a letter. Right up until the moment he pulls the trigger.
Exactly. The prop is for him, not for the victim.
But here is the tragedy, the absolute heartbreak of this timeline. Alistair's inside. He has the envelope. He's confused. Veronica tells him, yes, he definitely asked for you. Alistair could have stayed inside. He could have called the police. He could have just locked the door and ignored it.
But he didn't. He went back.
Why? Why on earth did he go back to the door?
Because Alistair Wilson was a rational man living in what he thought was a rational world. He was a banker. He dealt with contracts, disputes, errors. In his mind, this was just a misunderstanding.
A mistake.
A mistake. And you don't hide from misunderstanding. You clear it up.
So he thought he could just reason with the man.
He likely thought, I'll just hand this back and tell the chap he's got the wrong house, or maybe the wrong Paul. He projected his own civility onto a situation that was fundamentally violent. And that is the fatal error. He walked back to that threshold believing in the rules of society.
And the man on the step didn't care about the rules.
No. As soon as Alistair returned to the door, the conversation, if there even was one, was brief. Veronica, who's now at the top of the stairs, heard muffled sounds. And then 3 shots.
Bang, bang, bang.
2 to the head, 1 to the body. Alistair collapses. He dies right there on the doorstep in front of his house. The killer turns and runs toward the seafront.
And the envelope, the blue envelope.
Oh.
He took it back.
He took it back. And this is a massive clue in itself.
Right.
If he was in a blind panic, a total amateur, he would have dropped it. Or just left it. The fact that he retrieved it suggests what the police call forensic awareness.
He knew he had touched it.
Or he knew his handwriting was on it. He wasn't going to leave his calling card at the scene of the crime.
So the envelope works as a lure, but it's also a liability he has to clean up. It is the strangest part of this case. But let's move to the physical evidence. Because if the envelope is a mystery, the gun is a history lesson.
It really is. 10 days later, the weapon is found. And we have to emphasize the sheer, almost impossible luck of this discovery.
It wasn't found by a police search team with metal detectors or anything?
No, not at all. It was found by a council worker who was cleaning street drains on Seabank Road. That's about a mile from the crime scene. He's operating a gully sucker.
A giant vacuum cleaner for the street?
Pretty much. It sucks up all the sludge, leaves, trash. The worker said later it was pure luck. He even saw the gun. It was just sitting in the gully trout.
So a few inches either way and it's gone.
If he hadn't spotted that glint of metal, it would have been sucked into the tank, churned up by the pump machinery, and probably destroyed or buried in a landfill. We would never have seen it.
So the killer gets lucky that he escapes, but very unlucky that the gun is found almost perfectly preserved.
Yeah.
What was it?
It was a Hanel-Suhl Model 1 Schmeisser.
That's so very German.
It is. It's an East German pocket pistol, a .25 caliber. It's a tiny thing, sometimes called a vest pocket or a lady's gun. But the date is the kicker. It was manufactured between 1920 and 1930.
Wow. So we were talking about a gun that was nearly 80 years old when it was used to kill Alistair Wilson.
A literal antique. And they're rare. Only about 40,000 were ever made. They are vanishingly rare in the UK.
What does that tell us about the killer? Because, professional hitmen don't usually raid a museum for their gear.
Exactly right. A professional uses a tool he can trust. A Glock, a Beretta, a modern 9mm, something with reliability. You don't stake your freedom on a rusted spring from the Weimar Republic. This gun just screams, weapon of opportunity.
So it's a souvenir, a war trophy.
That's the leading theory, yeah. A British soldier in World War II takes it off a German officer or finds it in a house, brings it back to Nairn.
Shoves it in a sock drawer or an attic, and it's forgotten about for 60 years.
Until someone, our killer, finds it. But here's the technical detail that I think is so important, and it often gets glossed over. The ammunition.
Right, the mismatch.
The mismatch. This is crucial. The gun is from the 1920s. But you can't buy 1920s ammo at the local shop. The bullets found in Alistair's body and the casing at the scene, they were Cellular and below .25 caliber rounds.
Made when?
Made in the Czech Republic between 1983 and 1993.
So you have a 50 or 60-year gap between the weapon and the bullets. Why does that matter so much?
It matters because of tolerances. A gun is a machine, a precision instrument. It's designed for specific pressures from the ammunition of its era. Using modern, more powerful ammunition in an antique gun is incredibly risky.
How so?
It can jam, it can misfire. In a worst-case scenario, it can literally explode in your hand.
So the killer was taking a massive risk just by pulling the trigger.
A calculated risk, or perhaps an ignorant one, we don't know. But it shows effort. He had the old gun, but he had to go out and actively source functioning ammunition for it. That implies he knew a little bit about guns, or he knew someone who did.
He didn't just find the gun loaded in a box.
No, he had to assemble the kit. It paints this picture of a local amateur, someone who had access to a family heirloom, went to the trouble of making it deadly, but didn't have the connections or the money to get a proper, modern, untraceable gun.
And then panicked and just threw it in a drain a mile away.
It's a chaotic mix of planning and desperation.
Okay, so we have a profile of who a local amateur, we have the how an antique gun, and a bizarre prop envelope. Now we need the why. And for a long, long time, the investigation got completely stuck on the victim's job.
The banker theory. Yeah, it's the obvious first step, isn't it? Alistair dealt with money. He dealt with businesses in trouble. The immediate assumption was he found fraud, he found money laundering, he denied a crucial loan to a dangerous person.
The police bet the farm on this, didn't they? They were convinced it was his work.
Oh, they launched a massive investigation called Operation Sorn. They turned his professional life inside out. They audited every single account, read every email, interviewed every client.
And what did they find?
Nothing. Clean as a whistle. Not just clean boring, in the best possible way. Alistair was a diligent, honest, by-the-book banker.
No debts, no affairs, no fraud.
Zero. He wasn't hiding assets. He wasn't having an affair. He wasn't gambling. In fact, he was serving out his notice at the bank. He had a new job lined up at the building research establishment. He was leaving that world behind.
So the motive wasn't hidden in some bank vault.
Yeah.
It was. It was literally across the street from his house.
This is the pivot that took 18 years to fully materialize in the public eye. The decking dispute.
It sounds so ridiculous when you say it out loud. A man executed over a patio. But when you look at the timeline, it is chilling.
Let's walk through that timeline. The Havelock Hotel sits right across the road from the Wilson family home. In the summer of 2004, the hotel decides to build a large new decking area in their car park.
Without planning permission.
Correct. They
Yeah.
build it first, ask for permission later. They file for retrospective planning permission. Now, from Alistair's perspective, this deck is a nightmare. It's loud, there are people drinking on it late at night, there's litter. And worse, bottles are being thrown over the fence into his garden where his two little boys play.
So he does what any responsible citizen would do. He objects.
He files a formal written objection to the council, and the date he sends that objection is Thursday, November 25th, 2004.
3 days before the murder.
The council processes it. They are legally obliged to send a copy to the applicant, the hotel. That letter most likely arrives on Friday.
So by Friday night and all day Saturday.
The objection is public knowledge inside the Havelock Hotel. It's being discussed at the bar. And you can just imagine what a small-town pub is like. This isn't a sterile board meeting. It's gossip. It's grievance. It's anger.
Who does this banker think he is? Trying to tell us where we can drink? Trying to shut down our business?
Exactly. The police later called it a disproportionate response. But think about the financial stakes. If Alistair's objection is upheld, that deck gets torn down. That's lost revenue. That's reduced capacity. For a struggling business or a landlord under financial pressure, that's not just a deck. It's their livelihood.
And Sunday night, the gun comes out.
The proximity is just undeniable. Thursday objection, weekend of anger, Sunday murder.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. People fight over planning permission all the time. They fight over fences, over extensions. They don't usually shoot their neighbors in the face. It takes a specific kind of person to make that leap.
And that's where the police profile shifted so dramatically. Originally, they were looking for a contemporary of Alistair, someone in their 30s or 40s.
Right.
But around 2022, they changed the parameters. They started looking for someone much younger, someone who was around 20 years old in 2004.
Why the change? What's the logic there?
Well, a 20-year-old is different. A 20-year-old is more impressionable, more volatile, maybe more eager to prove himself. If the mastermind was an older figure, say, the landlord, angry about the deck, the executioner might have been a younger associate, fired up by all the angry talk, maybe trying to be a hero for his friends or his boss.
And they had a specific guy in mind, didn't they? This wasn't just a vague theory.
They did. Police focus narrowed on a local man. He was a regular at the Havelock Hotel. He was 20 years old at the time of the murder, and he was known to hang around with the landlord, a man named Andy Burnett.
And the suspect had a thing for guns.
He kept guns. He applied for a firearms license later on. He was eventually imprisoned for, I think, unrelated drug offenses. He just fits the profile perfectly. Young, local, had an interest in and maybe access to weapons, and he was immersed in that pub culture where the grievance against Alistair was brewing all weekend.
And this ties back to that strange sighting on the beach.
The East Beach sighting, yes. A witness came forward, much later, unfortunately, saying they saw two men on the beach in Nairn about a month before the murder, one older, one younger.
And the younger man was holding a handgun.
He was holding a handgun. It looked like they were testing it. And this makes perfect sense if you accept the antique gun theory.
Of course.
If you dig a rusty 80-year-old gun out of an attic, you don't walk straight to a murder scene with it. You have no idea if it even works. You need to know if it goes bang. So you take it down to the beach at night. You fire a few rounds into the sea.
It's the dress rehearsal.
It connects the weapon, the local geography, and the age profile of the suspects. It's a very compelling narrative.
And the police even went to Canada to chase this down, right?
They did. Andy Burnett, the hotel landlord, he'd moved to Nova Scotia. In 2022, a team of detectives flew out there. They interviewed him for days. They were very careful to say he was a witness, not a suspect. But they were clearly trying to map out the atmosphere in the pub that weekend. They wanted to know who said what, who was angry, who made threats.
So, okay, let's recap. We have a motive that fits the timeline perfectly. We have a weapon that fits the local amateur profile. We have a specific suspect who fits the age and the connections. So why are we sitting here in 2026 without a conviction?
Because circumstantial evidence, no matter how strong, isn't forensic evidence. You can know who did it or be 99% sure, but if you can't prove it in court beyond a reasonable doubt, you can't charge them.
And this failure, this lack of resolution, has caused a massive rupture with the family. We have to talk about the Wilsons, Veronica and the boys.
The human cost here is just immense. Andrew Wilson, the eldest son, was 4 years old when his dad was killed. He's an adult now, in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
And he's gone on record saying his only memory of his father, his only memory is seeing him lying on the doorstep, bleeding.
That is just horrific. I can't even imagine.
It is. And for years, they trusted the police. They stayed quiet. They grieved in private. They let the detectives work. But patience runs out, especially when you feel you're being misled.
What was the breaking point for them?
It seems to have been around May of 2023. The family was led to believe by the police that an arrest was imminent. The police essentially told them, get ready, we're going to make a move. So they prepared themselves emotionally for the news.
Some kind of closure, finally. And then what happened?
Nothing. The arrest was canceled. The rug was just pulled out from under them. And they weren't given an explanation that satisfied them, just silence.
That's a special kind of cruelty. To get a family's hopes up like that after all this time and then just dash them.
The family used the word callous. They felt completely abandoned. So they lodged formal complaints against Police Scotland and the Chief Constable, Joe Farrell. They accused the force of incompetence and of deliberately keeping them in the dark.
And this wasn't just a grieving family lashing out in frustration. The official watchdog agreed with them.
Yes. The PIRC, that's the Police Investigations and Review Commissioner for Scotland, they investigated the complaint and they upheld it. That is a significant institutional rebuke. It's the system itself saying, yes, Police Scotland, you failed these people.
And that failure, that public criticism, triggered a complete reboot of the case. Operation Sabine.
In September 2024, the Lord Advocate, Dorothy Bain KC, that's Scotland's top prosecutor, she orders a complete reinvestigation. She basically takes the case away from the old team and gives it to a new one.
A fresh pair of eyes. Or many fresh pairs of eyes.
37 officers, a brand new, dedicated team. They have been tasked with reviewing everything. 10,000 documents, 6,000 witness statements, 14,000 police actions. They are rebuilding the entire case from the ground up, piece by piece.
And they have better technology now. That must be the big hope.
It's DNA 24. That's the hope. Forensic science has moved light years since 2004. Back then, you needed a visible sample like blood or saliva. Now we can detect what's called touch DNA from just a few skin cells left behind.
So they're retesting the gun, the envelope.
Everything. The gun, the clothes Alistair was wearing. Think about the gun. Even if the killer wiped it down, did he miss a spot? The knurling on the grip, that rough checkered texture, is a perfect trap for skin cells.
Or inside the mechanism.
Exactly. The spring inside the magazine. If he loaded those bullets into the magazine without wearing gloves, his DNA could be inside the gun, protected from the elements for 20 years.
That's the smoking gun, potentially.
Right.
Or the smoking DNA, I guess.
It is the best shot they have, finally connecting the physical evidence directly to the main suspect.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the one thing that still nags at me. It's the synthesis of all this. We have what you called a grubby local dispute over a pub deck, which feels very small town and mundane.
Right.
But then you have this spy novel prop in the empty flue envelope addressed to Paul. How do you reconcile those two things? How do they exist in the same crime?
I think we have to accept that criminals are often weird, and they're not always logical. We try to apply this rational true crime logic to them, but they operate on their own internal, often flawed logic.
So you think the envelope, the name Paul, it was all just nonsense?
I think it was functional nonsense. Imagine the 20-year-old killer. He's sitting in his car down the street. He's got the antique gun on the seat next to him. He's nervous. His heart is pounding. He looks in the glove box for something, anything. He sees an old envelope. Maybe it says Paul on it because it was for his mate Paul years ago.
Or a bill or anything.
Anything. He grabs it. He thinks, I'll use this to hide the gun as I walk up, or I'll use this to get him to open the door. It's an improvisation.
So we and the police have spent more than 2 decades obsessing over who is Paul. And Paul might just be a plumber the killer hired in 2003.
Exactly. It could be a red herring created completely by accident. The banality of the motive, the deck, is perhaps matched by the banality of the prop. It wasn't a secret code. It wasn't a message for someone else. It was just a piece of paper he had in his car.
That makes it almost more tragic, doesn't it? Alistair Wilson didn't die for some grand conspiracy. He died for nothing. For a piece of wood and a misunderstanding.
And because he decided to go back and open the door a second time?
Let's leave our listeners with that final thought, that final image of the night. Alistair is standing back in his hallway. He's safe. He's with his wife. The door is closed. But he turns around.
He turns around because he believes in civilization. He believes that if you just talk to people, you can fix things. The tragedy of Alistair Wilson is that he was a rational man who walked out to meet an irrational force. He died because he didn't assume the worst of his neighbor. He assumed it was just a simple mistake.
And that is a terrifying thought for anyone who has ever answered a knock at the door from a stranger. If you're listening and you know anything, maybe you were in the Havelock Hotel that weekend, maybe you remember a young guy bragging or getting angry, maybe you know who Paul really is, the police portal is still open. The family deserves peace.
Justice is long, long overdue.